Now we're going to have several guests today, but we will have plenty of time for questions after that. But before we have any guests on, I want to read something to you. I got an email here from Diane van der Ried in Switzerland. Diane was one of those who attended this workshop I held in my home a few weeks ago. And she made a couple of points in the email that I think is worthwhile us discussing here. Let me just read this to you. It says, I'm writing to you tonight because both Alon, that's her husband, and I want to thank you for leading us with so much love and patience to A Course in Miracles. Now we're going to bring Sherry Baker on in a moment. Sherry Baker is our advanced student of A Course in Miracles, and we'll be talking about some topics there. But A Course in Miracles is a centerpiece of the more sophisticated portions of optimal EFT. So she goes on. We were eager to start reading it again after leaving Sea Ranch, my home. And so we did immediately upon our return home. And guess what? It's like reading an entirely new book from the ACIM we read 7 years ago. And that's the point I want to make here. When we read A Course in Miracles, for those of you who are newcomers at it, it can seem obtuse, it can seem strange, you can get some messages from it, but the more you read it, the more shows up, and the more shows up, and the more shows up. And it's really a spectacular document, but you do have to get into it some. And the more you read it, the more astonishing it becomes. And then she says, I believe that reading A Journey Without Distance, which I'd recommend anybody read, I recommend to everybody who attended my workshop, that's all about A Journey Without Distance by Robert Skutch, S-K-U-T-C-H, is all about how the Course began, how it started and where it came from. He says, I believe that reading A Journey Without Distance played an important part in opening our minds to it again. Now ACIM is in our life for good, and we will keep reading a chapter or so every day because we need it like a thirst. And that's the kind of thing that comes on for those for whom A Course in Miracles becomes a path. And then she makes another point here, and this point has to do with practice. It's the kind of thing that I've talked about over and over again. See, we're offering and displaying something new to most of us. It's a spiritual aspect that has helped healing advance quite a bit, as we're seeing here. But we have to compete with with what our senses are telling us. Our senses are telling us about a separated world, and the Course in Miracles and other things we're doing are talking about a joined or a oneness world. And so it takes practice, to start to gradually leave the pull of the separated world and be more involved with the oneness world. She says this, besides from reading ACIM, we have been doing a few hours of optimal EFT every day. Amazed at how quickly we go deeply into things, worked on many different subjects, from physical issues to emotional issues, always with delightful results so far lasting. Okay. How much you practice is up to you. They're doing it for hours a day. Whether you have time to do that or not, I don't know. But whatever you can do to practice, the more you practice, the more you get into this, the more you're going to start getting results. Okay, so I wanted to bring that up. Now, let me look at my little notes here. I am now going to bring on Sherry. Would you raise your hand for me? Sherry Baker. Whoops, where are we? There we are. Sherry, I'm going to unmute you and say hello, hello, Sherry.
Hello, hello. Happy
Yes, okay. So you and I have a topic today that we talked about before, and I announced on our newsletter, and that has to do with what quantum physics refers to as the illusion. That's what they refer to it as. Meaning at the atomic level, there is no such thing as separation, and we're all made of atoms. Separation is impossible, so that our senses are showing us a separated world that is an illusion. A Course in Miracles also calls it an illusion, but it also calls it a dream. Interesting kind. Do you have any comments on the dream, Sherry?
Okay, the Course says the world is an illusion, and it says that the lives we think we're having are only happening within a dream. This is the central thought that the Course is trying to teach us, but it's one of the most difficult because the world and our bodies seem so real.
Indeed, indeed, incredibly real. Yes. I mean, you go pinch yourself. It hurts, you know. Stick a pin in yourself. It hurts. And I'm sitting here in my illusory separate body, looking at my illusory separate computer screen, seeing the illusory separate Sherry. And it all seems very, very, very real, of course.
It does. It does. But the Course teaches us that only God is real, that God is loving thought, and that all thought creates. There's no such thing as an idle thought. So if God is loving thought and God is all that is, the Course teaches, when God extended himself and created us, he created our spirit. If God is all that is and is loving thought, then by definition, anything physical isn't real. It's an illusion.
Yeah. And we talked about what was real, you know, in a previous webinar as well. But the dream thing, you know, when I had my spiritual experience, which I hope people have read about by now, I liken it to being in a bubble, and the inside of the bubble reflects off to me the world. I mean, all the things and the separation things in the world are reflected off me, and I'm in this bubble, but outside this bubble is this intense source of nothing but love, which is just aching to get in, but I've got my own little bubble there. And when I had my experience, the bubble was, it's like inside the bubble, I am dreaming. This is a dream inside this bubble. Outside the bubble is reality during my spiritual experience and those of others. It's like the bubble got hit with a pin and poof, it just left and the world vanished. And I woke up is a good way to say that. I awakened momentarily, briefly, to the essence of Source, God, and the experience of love was just incredible. Okay, so anyway, that's a way to look at the dream. Now, the Course also says, and it's got a beautiful little passage in it that says something like, when you dream at night, the dream that you're used to having, the dream you call a dream, or we call a dream, it all seems so very real while you're having the dream. In fact, if we attach some, medical monitoring things to your body, we would find your adrenaline shifts and your blood pressure changes and all kinds of bodily changes go on as you're having this dream, which seems so real during the dream. At one moment you're playing bridge with a celebrity, and the next moment you're in a submarine during World War II. It happens like that. And we don't question the reality of that while we're having the dream. However, we wake up, and when we wake up, we say, oh, that wasn't real. That was just a dream. And we think nothing of it. We go about our lives and so on. So if we had some big guilt thing we did during that, it doesn't matter. It's just gone. So the idea, and please comment on this, Sherry, the idea now is that we are dreaming now. This is a dream that seems so very real. And when we wake up, as I did momentarily, we'll look back at it and say, oh, that was a dream. Nothing happened. It wasn't even real. Okay. How am I doing, Sherry? Well, somehow or other, Sherry disappeared on us. I think Sherry is having some difficulty with, just a minute. Yeah. All right. I think Sherry somehow got booted off. Here she is. Unmute. She got muted. Oh, yeah. Okay, now you're back. I'm sorry. Somehow you got unmuted. I don't know how.
Well, I kind of lost you for a couple of minutes, and then I got you back. So I guess then I got lost.
Well, I was just talking about the Course's view of a dream.
Right.
It talks about the fact that we have what we call a dream isn't really real. We wake up from that, and we say, oh, that's not real. But we're dreaming now. Someday we'll wake up from that, and we'll look back at this now that seems so real and say, oh, what was that?
Well, the Course says that we have sleeping dreams and we have waking dreams. And we are merely moving from one dream to the next. Our experience is that we only have dreams when we're asleep at night. But the Course says when you wake up from that dream, you merely enter another dream. The content is the same, but the form is different. And when we wake up from our sleeping dream, and often we're very happy, thank God that didn't happen.
Yeah.
One day we will wake up from all of this and say, oh, thank God none of that happened.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Yet it seems so real at the moment.
It certainly does.
Okay.
But it can't be real because it's not the truth of God, the Course says.
Okay, and so some of the people that are listening in have had a spiritual experience as I've had. And they've actually woken up to one degree or another. And experience that. Now, so when they listen to this, they go, oh, yeah, I got that. Those who haven't, however, really have nothing to compare that to. They have to kind of sort of take it on faith. That's why I keep pounding the table for quantum physics, because that's our absolute highest level of science that is pointing to this fact that this is all an illusion. That's a very solid scientific fact. And I list lots of other people with spiritual experiences. There are thousands of near-death experiences that are on the internet and so on. So we try to, if we can get the idea that this very real seeming experience that we have is nothing more than a dream, that moves us along the path a fair amount.
Yes. And I don't know if I can say I was fortunate, but I have had several experiences which convinced me that the world is just an inner projection. And one of those experiences was not a lot of fun, but I'm happy I had it because it really helped convince me that I'm looking at a movie out there. Back in the day when our TV sets messed up, we kind of had all these horizontal lines running through it, and you had a little horizontal hold button. That tells people how old I am. But anyway, when you would adjust the horizontal hold, the picture would clear. One day, many years ago, I was looking out into the world, if you will, and my screen started jumping up and down, the whole world, like it had a horizontal hold problem. And it was a little scary because I didn't know how long that would last, if not forever. And I panicked a little, but then all of a sudden my picture cleared up again, like I had adjusted the horizontal hold, and it became nice and clear. It convinced me that I was looking at a projection, at a movie, and sometimes the picture can get a little foggy, and then it cleared up, but I thought, wow, that's not real out there. That's just a projection of mine.
Yes, and getting to the not real thing, I can recall, and I've said this before, but it's worth repeating sometimes. In my spiritual experience, while I was in it, I was saying to myself, oh, this is real. I'm staying. I mean, I'm who needs that other thing? I'm staying. I didn't stay. It got pulled back in. But that's what I did. And the other thing that I would do is, from a healing point of view, I've said this so many times, I sound like a broken record, but in that state, in that true reality state, the healing power of that goes far beyond anything that we can do in a man-made sense. It goes far beyond medicine. It goes far beyond EFT. It goes far beyond chiropractic and whatever else you want to put in the man-made basket. And there are, countless things that can go in there. You don't need any of that in that ultimate state. And of course, that's what we're trying to approach here with optimal EFT. We're trying to climb this ladder so we get higher and higher and higher up that ladder. That's me talking a little bit. Any more there, Sherry?
Well, that's one of the many delightful benefits of knowing that this is not reality, because anything of the body, illness or whatever, has no power over us, because it's not the truth of God as God created. Yeah. And that's why we can heal from any physical issue, because it's not real.
Yeah. And speaking of that, I'm going to shift for a moment. I'm going to keep you unmuted, Sherry. I'm going to shift over to Bianca, because we have something that fits right in here. So Bianca, if you'd raise your hand for me. Okay. Are you there, Bianca?
Yes, I am.
All right, great. Bianca is from France. And Bianca sent me an email, and it was a fascinating email. You were diagnosed several years ago with COPD, correct?
Yes.
And not everybody knows what that means. Tell us, what does that stand for?
In English, it might be chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or called lung disease. Yeah. I had a look at Wikipedia, and it confirmed what I've been told, that there is no cure, as a matter of fact. It can only go a little bit worse.
Okay. And so
it's like old bronchitis, chronic bronchitis, more or less like that.
Yeah, and it's a big time breathing problem, and
yes.
to put it in the simplest of terms. Okay. And there's lots of medications for it that help with the symptoms and so on.
They're nothing really efficient, but I've been on cortisone for about 20 years, I suppose. Yes.
Okay. All right. And you have to take a puff of something once or twice a day.
Cortisone in the morning.
Yeah. Okay.
I do it in the morning.
So on our last webinar, the one we last did, this is what you wrote me the email about. Well, why don't you say, I want to put a little summary up, but then you talk about it in more detail. The summary, as I recall it, is you got into something like you would call the optimal EFT feeling as a result of being on the webinar, a nice, peaceful, sort of joined feeling. And then you decided, well, why don't I just focus healing power while I'm watching the webinar on my lungs, on my COPD.
Yeah.
And so that's a little intro. Why don't you just say what happened?
Well, I very much liked this webinar, which was on the 20th of December, because there was such a strong feeling. It was after your workshop in California in Sea Ranch, and I thought it was very strong. So gradually, it was spreading a sort of pulsating feeling in my heart region. It went all over the breast. Sometimes it goes outside the body, and it was very warm. And I said, well, now I'm in the feeling that I'm trying to get in when I work with optimal EFT. So why don't I just have a go at my lungs? And then, of course, it was fascinating what happened, so I forgot about it. And then it was off and on. I didn't do a big effort. And it was only the next morning that I said, well, I'm not having my medicine. And I haven't had since.
Wait a minute, when you said you're not having it.
Because I didn't feel like it. Otherwise, I'm short breath, very short breath.
Yeah.
And now I can pant. I mean, I'm not a young girl anymore, so but I don't have this, horrible feeling that I must have my cortisone, I must have my medicine, otherwise I can't manage. I haven't had it since then.
Okay, so you have not had your daily medication for a couple of weeks now.
Well, it's since the 21st of December.
Well, okay, so that's about 2 weeks.
Yes.
That's about 2 weeks. Okay, so one of the things I want to make sure that I cover here is that we're not telling people, oh, just do optimal EFT and forget all your physician's advice and your medications, etc. So if you do this kind of thing and you don't use your medications, etc., that's up to you to do. I'm not telling you to do that, and you're not telling anybody to do that. Your experience was that you stopped using the medications and you simply have not had symptoms since. Do I have that right?
Right, quite. It's very surprising. surprising it was so simple.
Okay.
It was no business, no issue. It was just.
Okay. Now, you are going to have another visit with your physician.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, you have a good friend who's also a physician,
Mm.
who I think said something to you like
Like what you've already had is very good. It's exceptional. If you've been free of medication and you feel well, it is all right.
that's what your physician friend told you. Okay. All right. I mean, see, I'm just being very careful here not to step on medical toes.
Can I add something I think very important? I've had this experiment with optimal EFT. So I've done very many sessions in 3 months' time. And I think that what happened to me was also persistence effect. I did like borrowing benefits. I didn't do it especially on my lungs, but working with optimal EFT for 3 months, several times a week, has probably helped me too. I think persistence is very important, but this is just a guess.
Well, yes, but let me talk about that a minute. So, I mean, in the video, the audio isn't totally clear here, but I want to summarize a little bit here. You have been actively interested or involved with an EFT practice, optimal EFT practice group. You're gathering some scientific data and this kind of thing. And as a result, you've been practicing, important term, optimal EFT over the last several months. And that may well have contributed to the fact that when you finally watched that webinar and focused on your lungs, that you had this currently symptom-free thing, which is not supposed to happen.
Yes. And there is another thing I'd like to add. I was completely relaxed because I was not responsible when I was listening to the webinar. So, I just relaxed. I think that might have contributed to. These are guesses from my.
Well, yes, thanks. And that's one of our important messages here, because the therapist in all this process is the unseen therapist. The therapist who may be assisting in all of this, their job is not to do the therapy. Their job is to portray the issue, help the client put things on the table, do some reframe and things like that, so the client is more prepared, let us say, for unseen therapists to do the job. It's also the therapist's job to climb their own spiritual ladder, because the higher they do, higher they climb, but the higher they bring the client with them. Okay, I said that right?
Quite. I like that.
Okay.
I like that very much. Yeah.
Okay, so for the last 2 weeks, then you have had. I mean, take a deep breath for me.
It's a pleasure.
Okay, and you.
Before it wasn't a pleasure. It might not be your deep, but it's deep for me.
Can you give us some estimation of what the deep breath was like 2 weeks ago before you did this?
It's difficult. I must say I was very reluctant to breathe.
Well,
deeply. So it was a sort of a stop, don't go there. But I would say it is probably, just a guess, 50% better.
Okay.
But I am happy, which is 100%.
You're happy with the 100%.
Because I feel free.
You feel free.
Free with the lungs I have. They are not constrained anymore. They do what they can for me, and I'm very happy for that.
Well, okay. You may not know how to evaluate this, but just let me ask you: do you consider your lungs now to be, given your age and so on, normal?
I will have to go to the doctor to know, but I feel 100% more normal than before, if that is your question.
Okay, sure. And these things can be, if you've had it for all these years, it's hard to know what normal is, you know.
Yes, I can't remember.
Yes, okay. All right. Anything else you want to mention, Bianca?
Only thank you, but I mean, it's a big thank you for the work that is done, what you do and how it's spreading. I think it's wonderful. There are very many people in France who are interested, and I think that's wonderful.
Okay, well, you're coming up with a big thank you for yourself because of this research project that you're doing, because you're gathering some interesting data, and we'll have more to report on that later on. Okay. Sherry, do you have any comment?
Well, no, it's one of the benefits of knowing that this is not real and that we have help beyond this physical illusion. As soon as we reach out for it and call for it, it's there to help us see who we really are and the power that we have. Bianca's story is just testimony to how powerful we are and what we can overcome if we allow the help in.
Okay.
I'd like to add something a little bit, because you asked me, last time you said, I don't know what was Sherry or you said, that when there is, it is a problem, it's not normal when there is no miracle. And that was said in the beginning of the webinar. So I said, well, that is powerful. And I think that also helped me. And that was, wow.
Well, yeah, and thank you for that, because I wanted to make one more comment here. Early on, when you were discussing, your COPD relief and all that, you said something about it was quite surprising. That was a word that you used. It was surprising. And we want to get to the point where it's no longer surprising, where it's routine and it is expected. And if we get high enough up the ladder, it's my hope that the medical schools and other practitioners that are in the healing fields would begin to say, let's try this unseen therapist first before we do these other things. And when we get there, then we are graduating from the, it's surprising, to, it's expected.
My surprise was that it was so simple. It was so, it just, woof.
Yeah.
That was my surprise.
And other times it does take more effort, more details have to go into it, and so on. But we do have these cases where just like that.
Like that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks so much, Bianca. Hold on a second here. All right. Now, if I could get Rebecca Bish to raise your. Rebecca, are you here? Can you raise your hand? There we go. Okay. Rebecca, hi. Say hello.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you are. Great, great. I'm wondering, is Edith here today?
I talked to her. She was not comfortable trying to navigate a webinar. She's not very computer savvy, so she opted to, she's going to watch it because I told her it's going to be recorded, but she wasn't able to be here.
Okay,
so.
That's fine. But Edith is your 92-year-old friend.
Yes, yeah.
And if I recall, you wrote me an email about all this, but if I recall it right, you are not a professional EFTer. Do I have that right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But you've sort of come across optimal. You've done EFT your way for a number of years, and now you've sort of graduated into the optimal EFT process. Correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I've been here since the first webinar. I think I've missed one or two. So
okay. Well, all right. So your friend, your 92-year-old friend Edith, to say it in polite terms, had a pain in the butt, right? Pain in the rear.
She did. Buttocks. I couldn't. Yeah.
Okay.
And it seems kind of silly, but it was really debilitating. She's, as I said in the letter, she's in pretty good health, except for this really annoying chronic pain that she had for some time that would not go away. And she's, mobility is an issue. She would force herself to sort of walk around and sit in different chairs. And the only time she ever got relief from it was when she was lying in bed, which is not how she wants to live her life. So, she tried pillows, she tried different chairs. And she said, it's embarrassing because so many other people have so many serious illnesses. This is just, a pain in my butt. But it was very painful. Yeah.
Yeah. But the reason I want I want to have this discussion with you is because the way this unfolded had some pieces to it that I think are very worthwhile discussing. Sure, we're not getting over terminal cancer here or something dramatic like that. But for a 92-year-old woman who has a hard time sitting down and getting around, et cetera, it's a big deal.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, you worked with her with optimal EFT. You had to explain it to her a little bit first.
I did. I've been very quiet about it. I've used tapping, the gold standard tapping, in the past, and I've used it with select people. I'm pretty quiet about, I don't, and I've known other people who have benefited from it. And then with optimal EFT, I've seen some pretty amazing things, both on the webinars and even, in other ways. So, but I knew she'd be receptive to it, and I told her a little bit about how it worked and what we would be doing, and we did it over the phone, which was sort of odd because I couldn't see her, but we're very, very close, so it was a little awkward, but it worked. And I think, I mentioned in my, and she was receptive. She knows me, a high level of trust and love and so forth. So we did the first round. And I focused, she reported, I said, on a scale of 1 to 10, she said the pain is really severe, about an 8 or 9. So we did the first round, and I kind of focused it, unseen therapist or whatever, in a very specific region of her bottom, and for about a minute. And when we completed that, she reported some improvement. And I said, well, she said, maybe it's about a 7 or 8 now, maybe a little bit less. Anyway, I said, well, let's do another round. And this time, so we closed our eyes, got very quiet. And then I was sort of led to move away from this specific area, and then just sort of like a cocoon up and down her body, like a little cocoon. We did that for about a minute. And she reported again some improvement. She said, maybe about a 3 or 4, but something really strange has happened. It feels like I have, I feel like the pain has moved, but it's not pain. It's almost like a fist clenching and unclenching in my thighs. And that sort of worried me. I thought, I haven't experienced this. So I took a deep breath and I said, well, let's try one more round. And we did one final round. The pain never went to 0, but it was lessened considerably. She was still having this odd sensation.
Let me interject 1 second if I can, okay? This bit about the clenching and unclenching, this other thing that goes in, I've heard reports of this and seen it myself in different forms. And this is why I'm interjecting here, because I don't want to miss this opportunity. There are Isabel Reese from Australia, who uses a lot of this, will put her hands on people's necks, for example, in her healing process, bring in unseen therapists, and all of a sudden what happens is there's some involuntary movement that goes on with the client. They're moving like this. I've even got a video of one lady, I'm doing that with myself, going on, and I've seen in one occasion where Isabel is working with somebody where he's on a table and he's going like this, and it's he could stop it himself, but it's unseen therapists coming in doing some interesting little machinations going on, and it doesn't hurt and it's not painful, but it's like somebody else is taking over. But it's the kind of thing that you've got to get to a place where somehow you are allowing that to happen. And I don't know, there's a magic formula to that, but this fist clenching and unclenching is very much like that. I just wanted to interject that, so I'm sorry.
Okay.
Rebecca,
Okay.
go ahead.
Good, because I hadn't seen that. I don't recall hearing, much about it. So we completed that session, the third round. She reported, improvement, but still this sort of odd sensation. And then I got a call from her about a month later. I mean, we're in touch pretty often, but I got a call from her about a month later, and she said, it's strange. the pain has come back. Oh, yeah. So pain-free completely,
Yeah,
miraculous. She was ecstatic.
Well, wait a minute. Just so we're clear. After your first rounds of it, it went down and down and down, but it was the next day or 2 or 3, remember your email right, where there was a zero pain. Okay.
Exactly. Zero pain and zero sensation of the clenched fist, the sort of odd sensation in her thighs.
Okay. So
everything gone.
Okay. So let me comment on that. So that's the kind of thing that we go, yay, wonderful. We optimal EFT, unseen therapist comes in, does it. Aha, pain gone. We're done. Okay.
Right.
That's the way it seems quite often, and quite often that is the case.
Right.
But we have to always be alert and aware, because oftentimes, remember, we're in a separated world that's an illusion, and lots of things happen within it. If the world, if you will, hits us in the face, other emotions come up, other things come up, other causes come up, and they show up in different ways. That's the point I want to make.
Yes.
So we're completely pain-free, but we always need to be suspicious to a degree. It's just healthy to be suspicious. So go ahead. Then what happened?
So then she called about a month later and said, I was doing a lot of correspondence. I was sitting in a hard chair for about 3 hours, and the pain has come back, but only on the left side of my buttock. It's only on the left side, but it's really severe. I said, and I didn't have I just wanted to get right into doing another round of optimal EFT. So I didn't ask her on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate it? I do know she said it was very painful. So we did a couple of rounds, brought it down, again, some improvement, not zero, but she reported improvement. And then we hung up. So apparently, she called me about a week later and said something very strange happened, and I didn't even really make the connection. That night, when she said the pain sort of again moved, I began to have severe pain in my shoulder and neck, and that night, I thought, I could be having a heart attack. I slept. I got myself even sort of prepared with the possibility that I may need to go to the hospital, which I was horrified to hear. She said she said I didn't, and at that time connect that the pain was gone from my left buttock and had maybe moved up into my shoulder. She said so that she went to bed, slept with a phone, was very fearful, woke up the next morning, no pain in her shoulder. That symptom was completely gone, and no pain in her left buttock. We spoke on New Year's Day. She said the pain, and that was about 2 weeks ago, the pain is completely gone. No more pain in the shoulder. That was an overnight, that was just happened that evening and was gone the next day. She hasn't experienced that again. And she feels great. She's thrilled with the, but it was a little scary to me, especially the second thing that she reported. But apparently it was just her. She said, I didn't even connect it at the time, but I wonder if it didn't move into another part of my body, because it didn't go away from her bottom, but it moved into her shoulder and neck.
Well, there is an explanation for that in EFT terms, and we call that chasing the pain. Now, we haven't really talked about that so much in the optimal EFT blend of things, but let me go to the tapping form for a minute, and then we'll move over to that other arena. We'll draw some parallels. I will often deal with clients where we really don't know what the emotional cause of pains are. Sometimes they're repressed, they're deep down, they don't want to get to them, all this kind of stuff, but they have physical pains in their bodies. And so since the physical pain, from an EFT point of view, and the emotional cause for it are linked, we don't always have to go to the emotional cause to give the physical pain some relief. It's more efficient that way typically, but we can go to the symptom and hope that it's going to do something with the physical, or excuse me, the emotional cause, the anger, the grief, the guilt, or whatever may be behind it, okay? And so I will often just start tapping on even though I have this pain in this shoulder with the tapping form, that I tap, 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 and that pain goes away, but shows up in another place. They call it moving, but actually one pain goes away and it shows up someplace else in the body, indicating that there's another emotional cause that we haven't dealt with yet. And then we deal with this new pain, and then we have a headache, and then we have a pain in the knee, and we keep chasing the pain around. And after we're all done, the body is typically pain-free, and they can't get upset about any emotional issues to save their soul. Okay. Now, it doesn't always work that way pristinely, but it works that way often enough to really get your attention. I think you just did something like that with Edith in an optimal EFT point of view, took care of one thing, that is the buttocks problem, and then another one shows up, which has a different emotional cause. Unseen therapist is in there unraveling it.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Anyway, that was a whole lot of words for that, and I hope people got what I was trying to say. But anyway.
Do you think both experiences that she had were examples of chasing the pain? Do you think the first experience could have been more that you described with Isabel, I believe, Reese, where there's just movement? It's, well, because that wasn't pain. Her first experience was more of a, muscle spasm.
Well, let's just call it discomfort. And okay. I really don't know the answer to your question. What I'm trying to do is to give conceptual understandings so that we can understand what's going on with the clients and ourselves better and better. And I'm giving it from an EFT point of view.
Yeah, yeah.
Do I have the absolute answer? No, but is it workable, and has been workable for me for a long time with a lot of people? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm. So good success. I mean, it actually was very successful. She's delighted. She feels great. It was a little scary for me as a lay person, I mean, that feeling of, oh my gosh, could I have, caused some harm?
Yeah.
But no, that wasn't the case.
Well, let me talk about the harm thing for a minute. Is it possible to cause some harm with this? I'm not saying it's not possible. I mean, that would be irresponsible of me to say that. I haven't seen any evidence of it whatsoever.
Right.
Anywhere. I mean, she was presuming maybe I'm going to have a heart attack, but that was her view of it. She's 92 years old.
Yeah.
But I haven't, I think it's possible for some people to start overstepping their bounds there and start saying, oh, I do optimal EFT, and I am the great therapist in the sky, and I'm hereby going to do my wonderfulness on you, and I'm going to fix everything you got, including this, that, and the other thing, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, which is totally out of context of what we're talking about.
Right.
But egos being what they are, that's probably going to happen someday. But I don't think unseen therapist is causing anybody any problems.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so anyway.
Yeah, good.
Okay.
She feels great. She's delighted, and thank you again. I think for me again, it's I've seen the results. I've experienced them firsthand. But what a great vehicle for sharing love. I think, as I said, it's a beautiful. And thank you for all your work.
Right. And thank you, Rebecca. Okay. All right, now we're gonna open this for questions from other people on anybody, on any topic we've had so far, or anything else, any questions, etc. But there is one thing I want to discuss a little bit with you first, and I mentioned it in my last newsletter, and this is an absolutely phenomenal use of the spiritual dimension for healing. So let me talk about it a little bit. There is a level of trauma that is far beyond the kind of trauma that we're used to or we hear about and so on. For most of us, the kind of trauma we hear about that would be the most extreme would be something like our war veterans and their post-traumatic stress disorders. And, and the the intrusive thoughts and the nightmares and the waking up at night with sweats and the anger outbursts and all the stuff that goes with that, the suicides and so on, we sort of label that as the extreme form of trauma. But there's another form of trauma which was way above that, and it's called satanic ritual abuse. And basically what it is some cults get together and they have the most extreme form of torture. Let me back up here a second. I've got to watch what I say here because some of this gets so graphic. It's too graphic for a discussion here. So I'm not going to be graphic here, but I'm going to tell you I have now on our blog a interview with Dave Staffen, who is a ritual abuse survivor in all of this, starting at from his birth, but particularly beginning at age 2, clear up through his 50s. And it's the kind of thing I've dealt with people before, and I've always had good results using the tapping form, but not complete results. We will take specific events that have happened, some of these torturous, awful, indescribable, torturous events. And people are better with those events, but they're not over this thing. The perpetrators of satanic ritual abuse are experts at mind control, brainwashing, to use the term, and so on. And there is so much that is done with these to sit there and try to use any kind of a conventional technique, and I'm even going to call tapping a conventional technique in this, or do you think you can get over that? Is beyond any of this. Now, if you want to, and I would urge you to do this if you have the stomach for it, to listen to this very graphic interview, you need only go to the Optimal EFT site of our website, and in the search engine, just put in the word Satanic, S-A-T-A-N-I-C, and you will see that interview with myself, Dave, and his therapist, Sandra, or counselor Sandra Fecht, F-E-C-H-T. The point I want to make about this is that Dave, stunningly so, is over all symptoms of this horrific traumatic issue, and it was done not with optimal EFT per se, because when it was done, optimal EFT hadn't even been brought to the public, but it was done by the core of optimal EFT. That is, it was done through the spiritual dimension. It was done through the religious dimension, and Dave is a Course in Miracles student, and to him the unseen therapist is Holy Spirit, which is talked about in the Course in Miracles, and Jesus, which are also talked about in the Course in Miracles. That was his version of that, and he would use those with his counselor to bring in the spiritual dimension. It's just what we're doing. It's just that it doesn't have the same details to it. It's just what we're doing, and it's the only time I have ever seen something this traumatic and this extreme taken care of at the level it was taken care of. I would urge you, if you have the stomach for graphic things, to watch that interview. So anyway, I wanted to make people aware of that. We're going to be, I'm going to ask for Sherry's comments here in a minute, but in the meantime, if any of you have any questions about anything that's been said here so far, you have any questions about anything else, comments or whatever, now is the time to raise your hand. Let me give you the instructions again. To raise your hand, you'd put your cursor on the screen. You will see at the bottom a clickable item called Participants. You'll click on that, a little box shows up, and at the bottom of that box is a place to raise your hand. Just click on that. Okay, Sherry, any comments?
Well, regarding Dave, I just want to say, and I watched a lot of it, but I tuned out about the time his therapist, Sandra, said, I want to warn you at this moment that you might, want to tune out. And I did. I heard a lot, and I have heard a lot before, so I know what he went through, and it is such an amazing testimony to the power of the Spirit. The Course says even the darkest nightmare has no power over us, and that is certainly pretty much the darkest nightmare I've ever seen described. And God bless Dave. He is beautifully showing us how powerful we are, that we can overcome anything that goes on in this dream. And the Course even refers to it as a nightmare on occasion, and certainly what he's been through qualifies. But he has shown that we can overcome anything. And that's very comforting to know that with all the things that we go through, our daily traumas, we definitely have hope. When we see someone overcome the worst possible nightmare, we certainly can reach in and heal ourselves as well.
Yes. And we have an incredible assistant helping us if we just learn to use her properly. That's the major point. There, with this case with Dave, there is, to my knowledge, there is no psychiatric, medical, counseling, or anything else that will even remotely touch what Dave's results were.
I agree.
Not even close.
A power beyond this physical illusion to help us out of it.
Yeah, okay.
Open to it and have the courage to do it, and God bless him for it and for allowing us to see and to learn from it.
Yeah, okay. All right, thanks, Sherry. Elizabeth has raised her hand, so Elizabeth?
Hello.
Hi.
Gary, this might be quite a simplistic way of looking at things, but going back to the whole thing about this being a dream.
Yes.
This is quite recent, and I went to visit my daughter, my grandson. When I look back at it, those nice days we've just had, it's like a dream. When I think back to times when I was a teenage, memories are just like dreams, aren't they?
Well, yeah, and that's a way to look at it, yes.
And so it's quite a simplistic way, but that's how I understand this whole thing about it being a dream. What happened yesterday? There's nothing stuck to me from yesterday. I can remember things. It's anyway.
Well, yeah, and you're touching, Elizabeth, on something that's it's another topic in the Course, etc., but it has to do with our past. Since there is no time, there really is no past. But to us, there is this big past back there. You're calling it memories, but in one sense, they are just simply a dream, and they may have, in our experience, happened a long time ago. But if we keep thinking they happened a long time ago, we're making them real. In fact, and this is quantum physics as well as the Course and as well as lots of other things, there is only a now. There is no time. There's only a now. There is no past. There is no future. There's only a now, even though it appears so much different to us, you know. So, but let me ask you. So, your memories, your memories are like a past dream. Do you really see them that way?
Yeah. I mean, I can remember climbing trees and jumping over brooks as a child, but it's really like a dream. It's a pleasant dream, isn't it? And things, you know, unhappy things happen to everybody, but when I think about unhappy things, it's no more real than a bad dream. I can remember some bad dreams I had as a child. There's no difference.
Yeah. And that's one of the things we're trying to get towards, because our senses are telling us all this stuff is so very, very, very real. But you just talked about our past. I'm sure Sherry has some stuff to say about the past too, you know, but our past being unreal.
Yeah.
Okay. Sherry, do you have a thought on that?
Well, I love it when she said nothing can touch me from yesterday. Nothing can touch you from a minute ago. Only the present is real. Nothing is happening. And it's, and the Course says that the past does not exist, the future doesn't exist. And we're always neurosing about the past, or we're worried about the future, when all we really have to do is to be present in the moment, right now, and just live life with what is happening now and not concern ourselves with what happened. It doesn't exist. It can't hurt us. We hopefully let go of all of it except what we've learned. We take the lessons with us. We take the love with us, but that's all we actually take with us.
Oh, good. Okay. Okay, anything more, Elizabeth?
No, it's the same as we have different personas for different people, don't we?
Different personas for different people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not real either. And we know it's not.
Well, yeah, but it certainly appears that way, you know. So.
But if you know, if one day I used to be a loving mother, I hope, and then the next day I went to work and maybe I had to speak sharply to somebody, it can't be real because you can't be everything. You're playing a role. It's not real.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. All right. Great. Thanks, Elizabeth. Very nice. Now, anybody else with questions, raise your hand. But in the meantime, I noticed I want to have a short discussion, if I can, with Nancy Neff. Nancy, I see you're on here. Would you raise your hand for me, please? Okay. I've just unmuted you. Nancy, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah. Right. Right. I just want to cover something with you. Last time we were on, you asked me a question, something like how did I conduct an optimal EFT session myself? I mean, you were asking questions like that. Remember that?
Oh, yes, yes. I was interested in how, I mean, I have the traditional form of EFT clients for a while, and I want to introduce the optimal form with them, but I wasn't sure how to bring it up, whether I should involve them and have them participate, or whether I should just kind of do it silently on my own while they were talking, and that's what we were talking about.
Okay, and so when I thought about my answer to your question, and my answer was valid, but but there's another piece to it that I want to bring to your attention.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen it or not, but I have a whole series of 13 or 14 actual sessions I've done with one lady, Marcia.
Oh, no, I haven't. Thank you.
Okay, Marcia, M-A-R-C-I-A, and there I'm taking her from ground zero up through, in this case it took 13 or 14 sessions to get rid of her adrenal fatigue. Other times it takes minutes or a session or two, but this is one where I had to bring out, you know, all the skills and everything else, etc. So I would urge you to spend a little time on that to answer the question I gave you about how, you know, how I deliver this. Okay, so
yes, I will. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Nancy.
Yeah. Before you lose me, I just wanted to comment on the ritual abuse situation. Since you've got me, I've worked with a client who was tortured for years as a child by Nazi people, like right after World War II. She's almost in her 70s now. And I mean, I won't even go into the things I did with her, but I mean, she witnessed children murdered and all kinds of awful stuff. And she actually responded quite well to the traditional EFT. I had maybe 6 sessions with her, and she's moved on to do other things. But, I really wish I had had optimal EFT back then, because, I mean, I tried to, without knowing that it was optimal EFT, I tried to get her to love herself more and to see herself as valuable and to know that the world loves her and it's not a dangerous place, it's a safe place. But if I had this technique, I could have really used it.
Yeah. Well, maybe you can go back and get a hold of her again. I don't know, but
yeah. She wants to work with somebody who supports Medicare, and I don't take insurance. So
yeah.
She got enough progress. I got her out of glasses. She was wearing glasses, so I healed her eyesight, and I healed her fearfulness a lot. Or I can't say I did it, but the work we did it. But I really wish I had optimal EFT back then, because, I mean, some of the things that she had been through were just indescribable. And I actually think the first session that we had, she was testing me by telling some of the stories to see if I would freak out and help her.
And they will do that because they have a very tender psyche.
Oh, sure.
And in my own experience, Nancy, with the ritual abuse survivors, I have had what I would consider at the time good results in that we're taking a specific event, one of these torturous, awful things, tap, 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 and that particular specific event doesn't seem to bother them anymore.
Right, right.
Great, and we do another and another, but I'm used to doing 5 or 10 of those and have the whole thing collapse. But no, this is an endless stream of specific events,
Yes, yes.
which can collapse with optimal EFT much more reliably than you can with the tapping form.
Oh yeah, this was over a decade. It was from the time she was 2 until she was almost a teenager until she was rescued.
Yeah.
It was just, I mean, the whole thing about not having enough food and you know, having to sleep on the cement floor, as well as the torture and the abuse and seeing other people hurt. It was just awful and endless. Yeah. So anyway, thanks for the work you're doing, Gary.
Okay.
Big thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Well, I don't have any more questions today, so this is going to be a shorter than usual webinar unless somebody wants to raise their hands.
Well, Gary?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Since we were talking about the fact that the world is an illusion and this is a dream, should we talk about the advantages of this understanding?
Well, fire away.
Okay, well, in this world where, you know, we can do our share of suffering, we all have our difficulties. Some people might think that if it's all an illusion and it's not real, maybe I don't need to deal with anything and I can just sit on my couch and watch bad TV. But if we think about it, the fact that it's an illusion and the fact that it does have an end, we can awaken from this dream, and for some of us, you know, a nightmare. It does spur us on, I think, to want to get up off the couch and to do the type of things that we're doing here. If we can awaken, I want to do those things that will help me awaken sooner. So it kind of motivates me to want to discover who I truly am and do whatever I can do to make that happen sooner, I would think. Another advantage is if I think that this is all really happening, it's much harder for me to learn how to forgive people. For instance, if I'm having a bad dream and someone does something to me in my sleeping dream, I don't wake up and want to get even with them. I'm not mad at them. I don't resent them. I just write it off as a dream. It didn't really happen.
Yes.
Knowing that this waking life is a dream too, it does make forgiveness easier.
Yeah, to me, well, this is my take on it. To me, it's the pivotal point for me to get to what we're calling true forgiveness. That is, we're waking up from the dream and none of this stuff happened, and all those jerks out there and those people that God created imperfectly, you know, and all of that aren't really there.
Right.
The fact that it is a dream, even though we academically, you know, hear that, that's a help to get us to the point where, oh, okay, somebody's doing all of this. Yeah, I'm reading over here in the course and other places. That's a projection. I mean, I'm really seeing in them something that I don't like about me. It doesn't seem that way at all, but okay, this is a dream. And we can play with that some. And it's to me, it's an aid to be able to go, oh, okay. Now, I must admit, I get pulled back into it, the ego being what it is. I have the same issues other people do and so on. But it's much easier to go, oh, I do that with some frequency. I go, oh. So I thank you for that. Okay.
Yes.
Was there another advantage?
Yes, we have a tendency, we all do, to get real distracted by this world and what is going on. And we tend to think it's all real. But if we remind ourselves the world is an illusion, that this life is a dream, it does make the suffering a little easier. My experience of the suffering is easier. And I read somewhere an example of this. Imagine that you are very hungry, you're starving. In example A, you have no idea where your next meal's coming from or when. Example B, you're hungry, you're starving, but you know for a fact you're going to eat in an hour. That experience of suffering in example B is a little easier than it is in example A.
Yes.
So when I am, quote unquote, suffering in this illusion, knowing that it's an illusion, it's not really happening, and that one day I will awaken from it, does ease that burden of suffering a little bit, if not a lot.
Yes. Okay. All right, great. Anything more, Sherry?
Well, also,
All right, go ahead.
if I know that I did not, that God did not create this worldly mess that we collectively did when we chose ego, guard at the gate, and we projected it out, knowing that we made this mess and it wasn't something that God did and I'm not being punished for anything, it makes me feel a little more confident in calling upon Him and calling upon unseen therapists. I have less fear, knowing that this is something of my making and that God only loves me and loves me unconditionally. I am more at ease and more comfortable in calling upon that high guidance for help.
Yes. All right. Beautifully said. Beautifully said, dear. Anything more?
Well, that's probably it for now.
Okay. I don't see any more questions, so we're going to have a shorter than usual webinar today. Whoop, I do have a question. I have Cheryl and Howard. Go ahead, Cheryl and Howard.
Hi, Gary.
Hi.
I would like to hear a discussion between you and Sherry about how to deal with, in this context of it all being a dream, the whole concept of karma. That is such a huge worldwide concept, you know, about karma and how we deal with that in this context.
Well, I tell you, Sherry's going to have her own view on this. And I don't even know that I have a view, but it's going to be a worthwhile discussion, I think. Sherry, I don't think the word karma in all the 1,200 pages of the Course in Miracles, it ever appears once, does it?
I don't think it does.
All right. So is karma a thing or not a thing?
Well, I don't think the Course uses that word, but it does talk about the most fundamental law that there is, and that's the law of cause and effect. In the East, I think it's called karma. In the Bible, it's referred to as you sow, so shall you reap. Course in Miracles, it's the law of cause and effect. In simple everyday language, what you put out is what you get back. And within this dream, that is a law that is in effect. What we put out is what we get back.
Well, however, what we put out is what we get back. If I steal your car, that doesn't mean somebody's going to steal my car.
No, not necessarily, but if you take from others, something likely will be taken from you, not necessarily your car. It's not exact, but the energy you put out is the energy that you get back. That within this illusion, that is one of the laws that governs us.
All right, but let's talk about this for a second. So let's say I do something bad to you, whatever that may be. Okay. Now, parts of the Course will say, but that was just an illusion. There's no need for me to have any guilt about that. We're just going to forgive that. It never happened, and so on. And so, is there not some conflict in that concept of, oh, well, it's just all forgiven and never happened, and what you put out, you're going to get back?
Well, there is the law of grace, I believe, that just because we put something negative out, something negative doesn't have to come back. We could do something equally wonderful and kind of negate what we did that wasn't so wonderful. So that can happen as well, and that I think is called grace.
Okay. That's it. I was thinking about, thank you for the question, Cheryl, because I actually thought about that myself. And I often, my own self, I was saying, well, I'm not sure karma even has a place in all of this, because it's all a dream anyway. And karma, generally speaking, is put in the punishment type frame, that if you do a bad thing, you're going to get a bad thing back. You know, an eye for an eye is a...
Well, there's also the positive perspective, that you do good things for people, and you hear about stories, well, you came back, you did so much good in your last lifetime that's why you have such a beautiful life this time. Because you earned it from this cause and effect, karmic type of principle.
Okay. And you're probably asking the wrong guy here, because I haven't given it that much thought. But Sherry, I will. Sherry has more wisdom on this than I do. So.
Well, I don't know about that, but Cheryl is right. What you put out, you get back, including all of the good things. You know, I was in a store once, and the person in front of me checking out didn't have enough money. I think they needed $5 or something, and I paid the rest of their bill. I handed them the $5. I didn't think anything of it. I went out to the parking lot to go to my car, and there was a $10 bill on the ground. It's like I put out the 5 and 10 came back, and that's often how good energy works. It comes back, and often in a greater amount. So, but that only happens within this illusion, of course. Obviously, in the real world, in God's world, there is none of this going on. But in this illusion, that is one of the fundamental laws, that what you put out, you get back.
Yeah.
But good stuff too. So it's a reason to put out good things and good thoughts.
Okay, great. All right. Anything more, Cheryl?
No, that's a question that I couldn't remember reading much of anything about it in the course, in the parts that I've read, other than, you know, cause and effect to some degree. But then you keep coming across the word karma, and I'm wondering if there is a different connotation there with that concept.
Okay. All right. Good enough. Thank you, Cheryl. Okay. Well, I don't see any more questions here, so we're going to close this up. So I will see everybody here in 2 weeks. My usual hug, a kiss or two, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.